This video is based on publicly available reports, official NBA box scores, game summaries, player injury reports, and media analysis from credible sports outlets as of May 8, 2026. All statistics cited are based on official NBA data. Player injuries and series results may have evolved after the time of publication. This content is intended for entertainment and informational purposes and reflects the analysis and storytelling of this channel based on available information at the time of production. A playoff series that started with one of the most lopsided beatdowns in NBA postseason history, and then, just 48 hours later, turned into a nail-biting, fourth-quarter war that nearly slipped away for the team that was supposed to be untouchable. 69 points. That is the gap between how Game 1 ended and how Game 2 almost ended. The New York Knicks walked into this second round looking like Destiny's team. The Philadelphia 76ers walked in broken, desperate, cursed, and somehow, against all logic, they almost pulled off the steal of the decade. Almost. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button right now because this channel is where the real stories live. Not just the scores, not just the highlights, but the full picture. The drama, the heartbreak, the truth. Subscribe and stay with me till the very end because this one is going to shake you. Now let's go back to where this whole thing really began. Because to understand what happened between the New York Knicks and the Philadelphia 76ers in these 2026 NBA playoffs, you have to understand the weight each of these franchises carried into this moment. The New York Knicks, Madison Square Garden, the most famous arena in the world, a building that has not seen a championship banner raised since 1973. For decades, Knicks fans were the butt of every joke in professional basketball. Trades gone wrong, draft picks wasted, coaching disasters. But something changed. Something shifted. When Jalen Brunson arrived, when Tom Thibodeau built this culture of toughness, when Karl Anthony Towns joined the fold, suddenly, Madison Square Garden had its heartbeat back. And in 2026, these Knicks did not just return to the postseason. They returned with a level of dominance that made the rest of the Eastern Conference genuinely uneasy. The Philadelphia 76ers, on the other hand, carried an entirely different kind of energy into these playoffs. Their story was not a triumphant return. It was a survival story. Think about what this team went through just to get here. Joel Embiid, the cornerstone, the former MVP, the big man who has frustrated fans and front offices and opponents for a decade with his brilliance and his injuries. Embiid had an emergency appendectomy in April. An appendectomy in the middle of the playoff push. He missed the first 4 games of Philadelphia's first-round series against the Boston Celtics. And here's where it gets surreal. The 76ers, down 3-1 against the defending title contenders in the Celtics, somehow, and I mean somehow, found a way to claw back. Game 5, Game 6, Game 7. They completed a comeback that only 14 teams in NBA history had ever pulled off. Embiid returned, averaging 25.2 points per game across his 5 appearances, and willed this team through. It was one of the most dramatic first-round exits for Boston, and one of the most unlikely survival stories for Philadelphia. So when the second round drew up this matchup, the 3rd-seeded New York Knicks versus the 7th-seeded Philadelphia 76ers, everyone knew the bracket math favored New York heavily. The Knicks had spent their first round absolutely dismantling the Atlanta Hawks. They swept through that series with an average margin of victory that was frankly embarrassing for Atlanta. 4 straight wins, with the last 4 by an average of 33.2 points. They set an NBA postseason record in Game 1 of this series by recording their 3rd consecutive playoff win by 25-plus points. 3 in a row. 3 blowouts in a row. This Knicks team was not just winning. They were sending messages. And then came Game 1 of the Eastern Conference semifinals. May 4th, 2026. Madison Square Garden. The crowd was electric. The anticipation was palpable. And from the very first quarter, it became clear that the 76ers were not ready for what New York had prepared. The Knicks attacked on every possession, every switch, every mismatch. Their offensive efficiency was obscene. They shot 63.1% from the field. 63%. They converted 51.4% of their three-point attempts. They had 34 assists on 53 made field goals. Jalen Brunson poured in 35 points on a night where he could not miss, going 12, 4, 18 from the field with perfect execution at the line. Karl Anthony Towns added 17. Mikal Bridges had 17. OG Anunoby added 18. This was not a team performance. This was a statement. The Knicks won 137-98. 39 points. They won by 39 points. In a playoff game, against a team that had just completed a miraculous comeback in round one. But the story of that game, more than the scoreline, was what happened to Joel Embiid. He struggled from the opening tip. He managed only 14 points on 3 for 11 shooting in 25 minutes before the coaches pulled the starters with the game completely out of reach. And during that first half, there was a moment that nobody forgot. Knicks guard Mikal Bridges collided with Embiid on a screen, a collision that caused the big man to grab his abdomen and wince visibly. The entire arena went quiet for just a second. Embiid's post-game remarks were pointed. He said he felt the contact was unnecessary. He said he would have to do a better job of protecting that area. Based on what's been going on, he told reporters, I guess I've got to protect it more. I don't know if it was dirty or not. That quote immediately became a flashpoint. Was it an intentional hit? Was Bridges targeting the surgical site? Social media exploded. The discourse went from, and then the bomb dropped. 6 hours before Game 2 was set to tip off, the Philadelphia 76ers downgraded Joel Embiid from probable to out. Right ankle sprain, right hip soreness. He had been listed as probable in the morning. He sat out shoot-around. He woke up, according to head coach Nick Nurse, with a bunch of soreness. They got him treatment during the morning session, and after that shoot-around, the decision was made. He would not play. Nurse told the press that Embiid was really disappointed to be ruled out. He really wanted to be out there, Nurse said. Coming back from that appendectomy so quickly was not easy for him. He worked extremely hard to get back. And that is the tragedy layered inside the drama of this series. This is now Embiid's 8th postseason appearance. He has missed time in 6 of those 8 runs. He was 1-for-3 in the playoffs without injury as a factor. The curse, if you want to call it that, follows him everywhere. Now, the 76ers were not just down 0-1 in a series against a team that had been blowing people out by 40 points. They were down 0-1 without their best player, their franchise cornerstone, the one man the entire offense and defense was built around. Heading back into Madison Square Garden for Game 2, on the road, facing the loudest crowd in basketball. The narrative said this series was already over. The data said this series was already over. Vegas said this series was already over. And then Game 2 happened. And Philadelphia nearly turned the basketball world upside down. Without Embiid, Nick Nurse made a decision that surprised some people. He started Andre Drummond in the 5 spot. And while Drummond is not Embiid by any stretch, he brought toughness, rebounding, and paint presence that at least kept the Knicks from getting completely comfortable in the interior. Meanwhile, Tyrese Maxey came out on fire. Paul George was cooking from the start, and rookie VJ Edgecombe was doing things that no first-year player should be doing in a second-round playoff game on the road. But the real subplot of this game was the Karl Anthony Towns foul situation. Towns picked up 2 fouls in the first quarter. Then, 46 seconds into the second quarter, he picked up his 3rd. He had to sit, and when Towns sat, the Knicks offense stalled slightly, forced to go small with Josh Hart at center, running the offense through Brunson and the perimeter. And the Sixers took advantage. Maxey, finding his rhythm in the second quarter, hit a backdoor cut off a design play for an easy basket. He posted up the 6-foot Jose Alvarado. He did everything. And then, at halftime, the 76ers had kept it tight. Through 3 quarters, Paul George was doing something that had not been seen since his All-Star prime days. He hit shot after shot from the corner. His pull-up jumpers were falling. He drilled 5 3-pointers through 3 quarters alone. He looked like a different player from the one who arrived in Philadelphia and spent parts of the last 2 years being questioned and criticized. And with 1 quarter left to play, the Philadelphia 76ers led the New York Knicks 90-89 on the road, without their best player, against a team that had won 4 straight games by an average of 33 points. The arena that had been raucous and confident went just a little bit tense. Not panicked, but tense. And then the fourth quarter happened. and everything unraveled for Philadelphia. Paul George went cold. Ice cold. He missed all 5 of his fourth-quarter field goal attempts. V.J. Edgecombe, who had been one of Philadelphia's few bright spots all night, went 0 for 4 in the final 12 minutes. Combined, George and Edgecombe went 0 for 9 in the fourth quarter. And the particularly brutal part? They were getting good looks. The Knicks were not dramatically improving their defense. Philadelphia was simply missing shots that, just minutes earlier, had been falling. According to CBS Sports analyst Jasmine Wimbish, there were moments where the Sixers bailed out Karl-Anthony Towns' poor defense by clanking near wide-open three-pointers. Shots that would have gone in the first 3 quarters, rattling out in the fourth. And Jalen Brunson put on his cape. That is the only way to describe what Brunson does in big moments. He does not elevate. He does not change his game. He simply becomes more Brunson, more controlled, more surgical. He scored in the clutch, he drew fouls, he made his free throws. He finished the night with 26 points. OG Anunoby had 24, 4 steals, relentless defending, the kind of performance that does not always show up in the box score the way it should. Karl-Anthony Towns, despite the foul trouble, recorded a double-double with 20 points and 10 rebounds. Mikal Bridges added 18. The Knicks' defense, meanwhile, suffocated Philadelphia over those final 12 minutes. They turned physical. They forced turnovers. Maxey, who had been so sharp for 3 quarters, finished the night with 6 turnovers. 6. The Sixers finished the game with 18 total turnovers, and the Knicks converted those mistakes into 23 points off turnovers. The New York defense in the fourth quarter held Philadelphia to just 12 points. 12 points in a full quarter of playoff basketball. The final score, Knicks 108, 76ers 102. The Knicks went up 2-0 in the series. And now, just 2 wins away from another Eastern Conference Finals appearance. But here's what nobody inside Philadelphia's locker room wanted to talk about publicly. This loss stings far worse than a typical defeat. Because they had the lead. Because they had the momentum. Because for 3 quarters, a 76ers team without Joel Embiid was legitimately threatening to steal a road game against the hottest team in the Eastern Conference. The missed shots in the fourth quarter will haunt this group. The 5 turnovers the Knicks committed in that final frame that the Sixers could not convert, those will haunt them too. Meanwhile, as the series now shifts to Philadelphia for Game 3 on May 8th at 7 p.m. Eastern, and Game 3 is today, there is the burning question of whether Embiid will suit up. Nick Nurse said after Game 2 that he believes Embiid is day-to-day. Both OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, and Embiid are all listed as questionable for Game 3 heading into the night. The Knicks themselves have injury concerns, with Mitchell Robinson sitting out Game 2 due to illness, adding yet another layer of complexity to what has become a genuinely fascinating and unpredictable series. What makes this series so compelling, beyond just the basketball, is what it represents for each franchise. The Knicks are chasing history. They are chasing the conference finals for the 2nd consecutive season. A team that was supposed to be rebuilding is now a legitimate championship conversation team, built on the back of Brunson's brilliance, the collective toughness Thibodeau has installed, and the front office decisions that brought in Towns and kept Bridges and Anunoby. This is not luck. This is construction. This is what it looks like when an organization finally figures it out. For Philadelphia, it is once again the same existential question that has followed this franchise for nearly a decade. The process was supposed to end in rings. Embiid was supposed to be the answer. And yet here they are, a team capable of pulling off first-round miracles, still haunted by the same ghost, their best player's inability to stay healthy when it matters most. The 76ers are 1 and 3 in the playoffs this year when Embiid does not play. 1 and 3. That number tells the whole story of why, despite all the talent around him, despite the depth that Coach Nurse has developed, this team's ceiling is inextricably tied to one man who has played only 96 regular season games since his MVP season in 2023. A man who played through a torn meniscus and Bell's palsy in 2024. A man who had emergency surgery just weeks before this postseason. A man who, even when broken, tried to will his team to victory and ended up unable to play 48 hours later. The conversation around Embiid and the Sixers has always been tragic in a way that goes beyond basketball. It is a story about what greatness looks like when it keeps getting interrupted, when the body refuses to cooperate with the will, when a talent that could have been the defining player of his generation keeps getting reduced to a list of injury abbreviations on an official NBA report. And yet, and this is what makes Game 3 in Philadelphia so compelling tonight, the Sixers are not done. This team has been counted out before. This city has been counted out before. A 0-2 hole is not a coffin. It is a challenge. And while no team in NBA history has ever come back from 0-2 to win a 7-game series in the same postseason after coming back from 1-3, this Sixers team has shown a willingness to defy logic that most franchises simply cannot match. The Knicks, for their part, know this. They know that they have not closed anything yet. They know that the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia is going to be loud, hostile, and desperate. They know that a crowd that watched their team pull off a miracle comeback in round 1 is not going to roll over. And they know that if Embiid returns, if that body give him just enough to get back on the floor, this series transforms instantly. Not because one player changes everything, but because Embiid changes the math of every possession. He changes what defenses have to account for, where the ball can go, who is open and who is not. The intensity of this series, the trash talk, the physical play, the injury subplot, the fourth quarter collapse, the Madison Square Garden electricity, all of it is building toward what could be a genuinely historic series if Philadelphia forces games 5, 6, or 7. The Knicks have the advantage. The Knicks have the momentum. But this league has a way of humbling certainty. It has a way of reminding you that nothing is decided until the last buzzer sounds on the last game. What we know right now, on May 8th, 2026, as Game 3 tips off tonight in Philadelphia, is this. The New York Knicks are playing like a championship-caliber team. Jalen Brunson is playing the best basketball of his career. OG Anunoby is a defensive force that no team has fully solved. Karl Anthony Towns, when healthy and out of foul trouble, is one of the most versatile offensive weapons in basketball. And Josh Hart, the player who does not need the ball to impact the game, the embodiment of the Knicks' blue-collar identity. He is the soul of this team in the most underrated way possible. And the Philadelphia 76ers, without their franchise cornerstone more often than not, are nonetheless showing a kind of collective fight and character that, if Embiid ever gets healthy and stays healthy, could make this team genuinely dangerous for years to come. Tyrese Maxey is an all-star. Paul George is showing flashes of his vintage self. VJ Edgecombe, as a rookie in his first playoff run, is doing things that veterans twice his age cannot do under this kind of pressure. This series is far from over. The battles are intensifying. The drama is real. And tonight, Game 3 happens in Philadelphia. And based on everything we have seen in this series so far, expect nothing predictable. Expect fireworks. Expect chaos. Expect the kind of basketball that makes you remember why the playoffs are the greatest sporting event in the world. This is the New York Knicks versus the Philadelphia 76ers. And the real story is only just beginning.